afternoon, we want to continue from where we stopped yesterday. I'm sure the Deputy Speaker and the Clerk of the House will brief you how it went yesterday. So without wasting too much time, I would like to invite one of our own, a practitioner, a legal luminary, a man who once wore the shoe you are in now at the federal level, and somebody who also understands our context and Lagos. Right Honorable Opeyemi Bamidele. We have 2 topics. We will just take them. So please, let's note our questions. Once it's done, we can now.
Your Excellency, the Right Honorable Speaker, Your Excellency, the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker, Principal Officers, Honorable Members of the Lagos State House of Assembly, members of the management staff, very distinguished stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen. I believe time is fast spent, so I have a suggestion. My paper will not be an interactive presentation. It's just going to be a presentation. I welcome you all to this brainstorming and thought-provoking session. I deeply appreciate, once again, the honor extended to me by the leadership of the Lagos State House of Assembly, the management staff, as well as the consulting stakeholders in inviting me as a consultant resource person at this retreat. I equally thank the organizers for the agenda that they drew up for this retreat, which I find to be very relevant and timely. In the same vein, I commend the leadership of the Lagos State House of Assembly, most especially the Speaker, Right Honorable Mudashiru Obasa, and the entire honorable members for sustaining the culture of excellence for which Lagos State is known. As a 3-term member of the Lagos State Executive Council under 2 elected governors between 2002 and 2011, I cannot but appreciate the magnitude of development challenges in the state, which invariably shows the enormity of responsibilities being shouldered by state actors and policy makers, including the honorable members of the State House of Assembly. I thank you all for making us proud and for trailing the blades at all times. Legislative retreats like these are yet part of the laudable programs that have over the years distinguished the Lagos State House of Assembly as the most progressive, most responsive, and the most vibrant legislative assembly among its compeers in Nigeria. Honorable members, I have been commissioned by the organizers of this retreat to engage this august gathering at this session with a paper titled Devolution of Powers and Public Service Delivery at the Sub-National Level, Issues, Perspectives, and Opportunities. To do justice to the topic, I would like us to examine some theoretical clarifications on the key words, i.e., devolution, public service delivery, and sub-national government. Theoretical clarification. What is devolution? The Merriam-Webster dictionary describes devolution as transference, as of right, powers, property, or responsibility to another, especially the surrender of powers to local authorities by a central government. According to Collins Dictionary of Law, devolution is the transmission of an interest in property from one person to another by operation of law. In constitutional law, it involves the giving of a degree of power, functional, sectional, or geographic, to an inferior body. A recent legal model appeared in the Scotland Act of 1998. Examples of devolution of power. Devolution of power in France. In the late 1980s, a process of decentralization was undertaken by the French government. Initially, regions were created and elected regional assemblies set up. Together with the departmental councils, these bodies have responsibility for infrastructure, spending, and maintenance, schools and highways, and certain social spending. In addition, a large part of spending is provided by direct grants to such authorities. There also are groups calling for devolution or full independence for Occitania, Alsace, and Brittany. Devolution of power in Spain. The Spanish Constitution of 1978 granted autonomy to the nationalities and regions of which the Kingdom of the powers peacefully devolved over the past 30 years, and an extraordinarily decentralized country, with the central government accounting for just 18% of public spending, the regional government 38%, the local councils 13%, and the Honorable members, what is public service delivery? It is the mechanism through which public services are delivered to the public by local, municipal, or federal governments. Sewage and trash disposal, street cleaning, public education, and health services are some of the examples of public services. Countries around the world are striving to improve public service delivery, and no blueprint solutions are available. Sophisticated technical solutions have been proven insufficient to improve services for the poor. Experience suggests that without adequate political, administrative, and social institutions, service delivery improvements do not come simply through policy reforms, administrative engineering, facility modernization, or staff training. Improving public services requires making policymakers, public servants, and service providers accountable to citizens and promoting citizens' engagement and trust in public institutions. Recognizing the interconnections between institutions, service delivery, and citizen trust and engagement is especially crucial in fragility, conflict, and violence settings. What is subnational government? Subnational government could be referring to a second level of government, state or province, or to a third level, municipalities or local government. It is also broad in the sense that it could encompass characteristics that are political or financial, like the ones associated with the sub-sovereign term. In fact, it is broad enough that the only thing that doesn't fit here is the national government. Over the last 25 years, the relevance of local governments, states, provinces, municipalities, and etc. in Latin America has been constantly increasing. The process started with a wave of decentralization, particularly in the education and health sectors, followed by the increasing of other responsibilities of local governments, and most recently topped off by the allocation of additional investment resources fueled by the commodities boom of the mid-2000s. Local government. This is usually the third tier of government in a federal state. This term has an appeal for proximity, referring to a government that is close to the people and that is close by. A government that usually provides more immediate kinds of services to citizens: water supply, garbage pickup, street maintenance, education, and etc. This is in contrast to the types of services generally provided by the national government, which are often less tangible. Citizens don't usually line up to receive macroeconomic stability or defense services. Decentralization. Decentralization is defined in many ways depending on the degree of delegation and autonomy transferred to the local actors. According to Olowu in his work in 1988, under reference in this paper, decentralization is the transfer of administrative and/or decision-making power to lower organizational units. The distinction between bureaucratic decentralization and political decentralization or devolution is that the former encompasses the transfer of administrative responsibilities to field administrative units of the federal government, whereas the latter refers to the transfer of substantial decision-making powers and responsibility to corporate units outside the framework of the central government. The encouragement of decentralization has been brought about by two main arguments. One, that decentralization is necessary to accelerate the pace and spread the benefits of growth, integrate diverse regions in heterogeneous countries, and use scarce resources more efficiently to promote development in the poverty-stricken or economically lagging areas. Secondly, for the poor to obtain a larger share of government services, ways should be devised to decentralize public service delivery and involve beneficiaries in planning and decision making at the local level. Devolution of powers. Honorable members, devolution is a form of decentralization which involves the creation and strengthening of subnational units of the government, local government, whose activities are substantially outside the direct control of the central government. Madig, in his work of 1963 under reference in this paper, and Menashu Dharam, also in his work in 1994, equally under reference, insisted that devolution refers to the process of legally conferring powers to discharge specified or residual functions upon a formally constituted local authority or government. It is the process whereby the government strips itself completely of certain duties and responsibilities and transfers them to some other authority. In essence, this form of decentralization creates a corporate sense of responsibility in local decision-making agencies with more or less independent existence and powers. In the most ideal situation, decentralization for development purposes should relate to the devolution of powers resulting from the creation of bodies separated by law from the central authority, in which local representatives are given formal power to decide on a range of public matters. By devolution, authority is shifted to the local level. Local authorities provide the opportunity for local people to participate in local decisions and local schemes within the general national policies. Some of the advantages of devolution of power include: one, there will be the support for central government by the people adopting its program as their own. Two, participation in government programs will assist in the fight against the indifference, pessimism, and passivity of many of the rural population. Three, local government is needed to maintain services started by the central government authorities, or alternatively, to maintain buildings, roads, and public works which have been put up by the central government. And finally, local authorities provide technical advice and assistance for self-help activities which are associated with community development work in villages. And of course, the table below represents the vertical allocation formula, and I commend that to your future review and analysis. And of course, below is the horizontal formula used in the distribution to states, from which state governments do get what they are entitled to in terms of naira and kobo. Again, I will leave the tables on page 32 and page 33 to your later review. Honorable members, challenges of fiscal federalism in Nigeria. So far, it is obvious that the history of fiscal federalism in Nigeria has been a checkered one. The military involvement in the country's national life compounded the problem. Similarly, the civilian counterparts whose mentality is not materially different from the former is not helpful. Therefore, the national fiscal policy is thus confronted with so many problems. Some of these challenges are National Assembly delay in passing the Revenue Allocation Bill since 2002, the Federation account and the challenges it's fraught with. 3. Excess crude oil fund and the challenges. 4. Federal policy on labor matters. One of the drawbacks in the fiscal policy arrangement is the centralization of labor matters. The Senate leader at the 7th Senate Assembly, Senator Ndoma Egba, in the Tuesday, November 8, 2011 edition of Punch newspaper, submitted as follows. A situation where you have one federal policy for labor matters is unhealthy. It is not in the spirit of true federalism. The problems arising from the payment of new wages across the country, honorable members, would not have been difficult if different levels of government were to negotiate with their workers on what to pay or receive depending on their ability or the financial wherewithal of the concerned government. A situation where salary payments will be dictated to other tiers of government without giving consideration to capability or ability to pay is not only bad, but incurably bad. The urgent need to review the revenue allocation formula. From the paper so far, it has been established that Nigeria's fiscal policy has witnessed a checkered history. Since 1946, there have been different principles of allocation adopted with no principle or yardstick which enjoyed the support and clout of lower federating units, referring to the state and local government. The search for logical and fundamental principles of allocation designed to minimize conflicts and rivalry among the federating units still continues unabated. This has resulted in the growing concern in Nigeria's second and third levels of government as regards their increased responsibilities without adequate financial support from the central government. Apart from the current salary challenge, there have been situations also in recent times where state and local governments will be called upon to take up responsibilities essentially meant for the federal government in such areas like roads maintenance, construction, assistance to security agencies, and other auxiliary responsibilities which are within the legal competence of the federal government. That there are significant risks of macroeconomic instability arising from lack of coordination between the three tiers and increasing overall size of government. It is not also clear that the alleged benefits of bringing government closer to the people will be achieved because the incentives at the lower tiers may not be any different from the federal level. Besides, the capacity constraints at the local level may counter whatever gains may be had from greater accountability. The real challenge appears to be to develop a new set of institutions that make government more accountable and thereby improve public service delivery within a given level of resources. Decentralization and fiscal federalism has received increasing attention in this regard as several developing countries around the world are experimenting with different institutions to bring government closer to the grassroots and hence potentially more accountable to the people. But as of yet, no conclusive evidence has emerged with regard to what kind of decentralization reforms actually lead to improvement in service delivery. Are directly elected local representatives more accountable than centrally appointed bureaucrats with greater decision-making power? Is fiscal decentralization necessary to improve accountability and public service delivery? Or can political and administrative decentralization achieve the same without substantial fiscal independence? More local governments may have better information of local conditions, enabling better targeting of resources to the poor and needy, better allocation across sectors according to local needs, and better monitoring of implementation by the local community. There is also a widespread belief that local governments are better able to recruit teachers and health workers to provide services in remote or rural areas. However, there is a risk of lower political accountability of subnational levels for a multiplicity of reasons, because of the presence of local elites that may capture all resources and deprive the poor, because corrupt practices by local governments and diversion of public funds may be better organized and easily facilitated due to the relative absence of media scrutiny and lack of checks and balances from other powerful government agencies, and because overdependence on federal transfers may lead local governments to shift blame and responsibility for service delivery to higher tiers of government that control the bulk of government revenues. There may be issue of administrative and management capacity constraints at lower levels as a process of self-selection. Most educated and talented individuals may leave the locality to pursue fortune in the urban centers of the country. At the end of the day, what matters most is that the local government is able to deliver services to its residents and that citizens have recourse through democratic means should their local government be unwilling or unable to deliver those services. Devolution of power in a federal state may not be perfect, but experience proves that it offers the basis for development in a multi-ethnic, multicultural polity. Even a unitary state like the United Kingdom devolves considerable power to Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, whose populations of 5.29 million, 3.02 million, and 1.8 million, respectively, cannot match those of many Nigerian nationalities and states. Unlike the German states, Canadian provinces, Australian states, and Swiss cantons, which exercise control over their natural resources, have separate police forces and are economically independent, Nigeria's weird federal constitution lists 68 items on the exclusive legislative list and reduces the states to mere fiscal beggars at the mercy of the center. Going forward, it is obvious our constitution needs further amendment to accommodate the urgent reforms needed to enhance service delivery through devolution of powers and the role of the federal government. The National Assembly, State Houses of Assembly, the civil society, and all other critical stakeholders is crucial in this regard. In this, your hand, honorable members, will be passed on to your legislative aides and management staff so that bills and motions can be drawn up for you in different areas of this paper. I therefore once again congratulate the organizers and honorable participants, while I thank all of you for your time and attention. Thank you. Your Excellency, Mr. Speaker, kindly permit me to stand on existing protocols and I say in that regard, all courtesies duly extended. Once again, honorable members, I welcome you to this second session, as much as I thank the organizers. For my second presentation, I will be engaging this noble gathering with a paper titled "The Role of the Legislature in Strengthening Nigeria's Democratic and Governance Institutions, Leveraging on the Ongoing Constitution Amendment Exercise." This has essentially made my job easier in that it affords me the unique opportunity as a former legislator at the National Assembly of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to examine the various ways and manners by which the Parliament can partner with the executive arm of government and other critical stakeholders to arrive at certain laws and policy measures that are tangential to consolidating democracy and good governance, particularly in Nigeria. Most interestingly, my long years of diverse experience as a former student leader, pro-democracy activist, human rights advocate, public interest litigator, civil rights lawyer, 3-term member of the Lagos State Executive Council, and member of the 7th Assembly of the House of Representatives, has left me with no other option than to pitch my tent with those who argue in favor of the need to strengthen democratic and governance institutions as a panacea to the fragility of structural growth that essentially help in no mean manner to develop democratic and governance institutions. Conceptual clarification. To enable me to do justice to this dialogue, it's pertinent for me to quickly make some theoretical clarifications on some of the terms featuring in the thematic content of this discourse. Thus, the terms that are relevant in this context are namely legislation, legislature, institutions, democratic and governance institutions. Legislation. The 6th edition of the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary defines the term legislation as the process of making and passing laws. In the same vein, the Good Level English Dictionary portrays legislation as the act of making a law or laws. In other words, legislation as a noun refers to a law or a set of laws passed by a parliament, certain laws or statutes enacted. The process of lawmaking is generally an arduous task that requires a long period of deliberation and consideration of the many interests and implications of the bill. The first stage of lawmaking in the parliament is the identification of the need for a bill, and so on and so forth. Again, I jump because the primary function of the legislature, as enshrined in Section 4 of 1999 Constitution, I have jumped to C, institution. An institution is an enduring structure that performs the most basic functions of social organization and community existence. For instance, the polity and its chief agency, the government, are institutions that address the primary need for order in society and subsequently the effective, authoritative prioritization of preferred or valued outcomes for people in that society. The economy is another institution that preserves, develops, and utilizes human and other material resources in producing goods and services those people deem vital, necessary, or simply reassuring to them. There are other institutions that are readily recognizable in any society: the family, the school system, the religious establishment, media, the military and the police, financial and business organizations, as well as a host of other function-specific institutions. By definition, a social structure that performs any basic function in society becomes an institution only after it has passed the crucial test of prolonged endurance. Many so-called institutions actually fail to survive this acid test and do not graduate beyond being dormant or faceless organizations that are marginalized in performing any of society's basic functions. For example, many educational enterprises fail to educate and are more properly viewed as fly-by-night commercial ventures. Many media outfits are no more than seasonal advertising agencies and to confuse them with enduring institutional arrangements that concern themselves with public information and education is a serious mistake. Some religious establishments are no more than crafty schemes making money off the desperate in this world by reorienting them to some utopian world beyond. True believers believe only in their bigoted truth, and for them, the presumably noble and justified every available means. When they rise to power again, I've jumped to the next paragraph, D, defining democratic and governance institutions. Democratic institutions are mechanisms for the facilitation of the democratic process, for the election of public office holders in any democratic society. And democratic societies thrive on citizens' participation at choosing their representatives at elections conducted at regular intervals as specified by the law. All democracies in modern time must be participatory. Therefore, democracy without popular participation of the people could not be referred to as democracy in the real sense of the concept. The inability of the democratic institutions in the country to carry out their constitutionally assigned roles in the political process in the past has resulted in frequent military takeover of political power from civilian and military administrations alike in Nigeria. Democratic institutions such as INEC, legislature, executive, and the police are put in place by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to act as mechanisms for the smooth conduct and enthronement of political leaders through periodic elections. However, these institutions lack the capacity to perform well due to the prevailing circumstances of the environment in which they are situated, their weakened moral threshold and poor ethical values, according to Professor Abubakar in his work in 2011 under reference. Ability to marshal and use available resources, people, money, talent, and time in the best possible way is what is called capacity. Capacity is not just about structure and system alone, but it involves creative, committed, and talented people who make the system work. Then I define good governance. Democracy and good governance are two ends to be achieved in a sustainable way. And this cannot be guaranteed without the greasing and conditioning process of good governance. The main features of democracy, which should be clearly distinguished from its various manifestations, include people's right to determine their destinies, the emanation of authority, particularly political authority, from the free will and choice of the people, and its submission to their continued scrutiny, and the institutionalization of such accountability. Some of the core characteristics of good governance are participation, rule of law, transparency, responsiveness, consensus orientation, equity, effectiveness and efficiency, accountability, and strategic vision. The need to strengthen democratic and governance institutions. Despite all conflicts and dilemmas hovering above the concept of good governance and its linkage to democracy, one fact remains intact. The heart of achieving good governance is building the appropriate institutions. According to the Human Development Report of 2002 under reference, this could be achieved through developing stronger vehicles for formal political participation and representation through political parties and electoral systems, by improving governance in political parties, promoting the involvement of minorities and women, building fair and just electoral systems, and limiting the distorting influence of money in politics. 2, strengthening checks on arbitrary power by separating powers among the executive, judiciary, and legislature, and by creating effective independent entities. 3, decentralizing democratically, devolving power from central government to state and local government in a true federalist arrangement, which will guarantee a more equitable distribution of resources between the center and component states and local governments. Governance challenges and issues seeking for urgent legislative reforms in Nigeria. Respected honorable members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, some of the contemporary challenges of the Nigerian state which are urgently begging for legislative reforms and attention are as follows. 1. The strategic development of the capacity for societal transformation and the reconciliation of different groups, which translates to the reconciliation of various ethnic groups and the building of bridges across religious and gender, and the institutionalization of a sustainable nationwide campaign toward new forms of nationalism. The maintenance of the principle of rule of law and public order for the protection of lives, properties, and investments in a manner that ensures that the state does not drift towards authoritarianism. 3. The innovation and implementation of clear-cut, effective programs aimed at poverty eradication, with emphasis on the reduction of rural poverty and urban mass unemployment, especially among the able-bodied youth and young school leavers. 4. An aggressive pursuit of social development objectives, the educational and health sectors should be prioritized as the bedrock for development in other sectors. 5. The modern construction and maintenance of social infrastructure, such as roads, rails, seaports, and airports, as well as the energy facilities necessary for rapid industrial development. The realization of and conscious impartation of the principle that leadership must not only be transparent in its actions, but must of necessity be accountable in line with the democratic mandate. Against this backdrop, honorable members, it is imperative that effective legislative delivery in defense of our common heritage, national peace, unity, internal cohesion, and territorial integrity is sacrosanct in the terms of the partnership envisioned between the legislative and executive arms of government and other critical stakeholders, especially at the national and state levels. Distinguished honorables, ladies and gentlemen, for us to effectively stem the growing tide of abject poverty, endemic corruption, political instability, and criminal tendencies such as terrorism, kidnapping, armed robbery, political unrest, and all manners of violent brigandage in our body politic, it is essential that these two arms of government must continue to cross-fertilize ideas between each other, seek the support and understanding of each other, and provide an enabling atmosphere for the soft landing of relevant legislations incidental to the maintenance of peace and orderliness, democratic development, and national transformation. Following a critical appraisal of the pungent challenges facing us as a nation, it is my candid opinion that one really needs to mention some salient areas, again awaiting urgent synergy among state actors in Nigeria for the lasting sustainability of our democracy and effective redress of governance challenges in Nigeria. 1. Access to arable farmland has serious implications for food security, since most Nigerians, especially the rural populace, are predominantly farmers. To guarantee access to fertile land by ordinary Nigerians, there then comes the urgent need to review the Land Use Act to redress the current land use tenure system in the country. 2. Aggressive pursuit of integrated rural development through the prioritization of small towns and village recovery and development bills to restore economic fairness to the rural areas in the scheme of national revenue allocation, as well as the provisioning of rural infrastructure to stem the alarming rate of rural-urban drift. 3. Effective implementation of poverty alleviation program is tangential to peace, harmony, and sustainable democracy in Nigeria, where well over 70% of the nation's population are reportedly living below the international poverty line of $1 per day. Hostility between the haves and have-not, the National Directorate of Employment must be further strengthened through relevant legislations for the mass generation of self-employment opportunities. 4, given the alarming rate of corruption in government circles, a country such as Nigeria that endures a culture of impunity as exemplified by widespread corrupt practices must be prepared for reprisal action from the downtrodden, which often manifests in the form of violent outbursts and spontaneous attacks. It is therefore a matter of national security expediency that more legal teeth must be given to our anti-graft agencies by the Parliament, while the executive, through the police and other relevant statutory agencies, should ensure that the enforcement and investigation processes are not only very effective and efficient, but must eschew selective treatment, executive lawlessness, high-handedness, and political persecution of perceived enemies. For your esteemed audience and understanding.
Another thought-provoking paper from a practitioner. Mr. Speaker, it's open for questions and comments. 1, 2, 3, 4. Please, can you put up your hands again? Can you put up your hands again? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you so much. Once I was blind, now I can see.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, sir, for the very instructive and informative paper. So I have 2 very short questions, sir. Firstly, you talked about the need for us to move away from a monolithic economy that is oil dependent, and then you also advocated, which was one of our campaign promises as a party, agriculture and manufacturing, especially agriculture. This is 2+ years, and moving forward, we haven't even gone anywhere close to it. So my question now is, what do you think could be responsible for that? Because I see that in a few years' time, coming forward, the electorate is going to ask us what we have done in not achieving what we've proposed that we're going to do. The second one is, you also suggested that there should be some form of parley between the legislature and the executive at making sure this happens. My second question is, how do you think the legislature can push this cause, both from the federal level and the state, in making sure that we bring our ideology back to the agricultural and manufacturing sector?
All other policies, again, most respectfully extended. Yes, concerned about running a monolithic economy and the need for diversification. 2.5 to 3 years down the line, what has the ruling party got to show for it? If there is much good for all of us as members, or those who are members of the party, but good for all of us as a nation. If there isn't more to show for it, then a cause for concern, as Honorable Desmond earlier identified. We all agree on the need to diversify our economy. And I want to believe, from some benefit of insight, that efforts have been made. very serious efforts, home and abroad. Diversifying an economy is a process, and that is what APC must be ready to explain to Nigerians in another 1 to 1.5 years down the line. Because of course, if there will be any area where PDP or any strong opposition party will be waiting for APC, this will be one of such areas. But the truth is, diversification is a process. It's not something that is going to happen in one day. What we must see first is the political will on the part of the new government. Nigerians having voted for a change regime, Nigerians must see that political will, that truly there's a desire to diversify this economy. How has this administration attempted to do this? We are told, and we also have seen, efforts made at trying to strengthen the agri sector. Efforts made at trying to strengthen the mining sector. Efforts made at trying to strengthen the manufacturing sector. Again, whether those efforts have been good enough is another issue altogether. And the judgment that anybody would draw about that at the end of the day will be political, depending on what side of the political divide you are. But there's no doubting the fact that efforts are going on. It's just a question of trying to reprioritize. Because if you are going to achieve this, the legislature will also have a role to play. The legislature at the national and state level must be ready to confront the executive, even with this promise that was made to Nigerians, especially at the national level, through appropriation. The budget proposal must reflect this. If you are still going to devote 72% of our annual national budget to recurrent expenditure and leave 28% to capital expenditure, then you are deceiving yourself. You are never going to diversify the economy. Ministers travel, commissioners travel, all manners of things happen. People own all manners of properties, and see the legislators at the state and federal level. And the agitation, I can assure you, will still come by the time the financial autonomy bill is passed into law. But what is important is that we must strengthen this institution if we are going to ever make any progress. Well, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time, but indigenship versus nationalism. My response to this, I will give a political will. The constitutional provisions are there. Indigenship recognized. Federal character is also a constitutional issue. But what manner of implementation is going on? And then, to what extent can that, how close are we to realizing that utopian level, of political existence, where someone, regardless of what part of the country you are from, can actually thrive politically? How do we have a national rebirth? Well, it's political, it's ethical. Nothing is going to change, as they said, if we don't first change. That comes under ethical values. And I agree with those who said National Orientation Agency has either outlived its usefulness or needs to be further strengthened to be able to do that. A lot of things that even have been taken care of by our Constitution. Time to time. Again, I thank you for the opportunity, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you, Honorable Barrister Opeyemi.
finished, but before you take your seat, and Mr. John, please kindly permit me to make this observation. Firstly, I want to comment on diversification of the economy. I think it's something that is not going to be possible now. It's very far away from us. And I'll tell you this, if you don't allow people to take part or play role in this agenda, it's not going to work. As long as we continue with the idea of going to Abuja to collect allocation, it's not going to work. There won't be commitment. And where there is no commitment, nothing will happen. We are only leaving this to...
Your budget office is also doing their own market survey. They're also waiting for them. As soon as they come, that office is activated. And they become, your brain. And it becomes easier for you to be able to do that. How else does it also serve all the members? It enhances your oversight capacity. When we were starting the National Assembly Budget and Research Office, a lot of our members were opposed to it. They felt threatened. A lot of civil servants within the National Assembly bureaucracy were opposed to it because they had what they call the budget department, and they thought creating that office would be taking, their job out. But at the end of the day, it became obvious to everybody that that fear was unfounded. It was only a myth. In the event that we have anyone who entertains such a myth here, either within the house itself or its bureaucracy, it can only add value. And finally, you are also losing, if you don't have it, an opportunity to interact globally. Every country in the Western world, either at the national level or state level, has a budget research office. And at least 3 times a year, converge. Most of the members who wanted to serve in the House Committee on Legislative Research and Budget, it was not because of anything that was coming to them. It was not because of an opportunity to be able to travel around the world. Because we had conferences, there was sponsors, we had seminars, we had workshops. Because there was a need for different nations and municipalities and states and provinces to compare notes to be sure that everybody is compliant with global best practice and the standard in the area of budgeting. So please, it is important that you take this very seriously. You are achieving a lot, everybody is proud of you, but think also about legacies. What will be said about the 8th Assembly? Some people will be bad, some may move on to other things, but what will be said about it? And why I feel passionate about it is I've always concerned and busied myself with legacy-driven things. As a member of Lagos State Cabinet, some of you were in Parliament and gave me all the support. When I insisted that Teslim Balogun Stadium that has been abandoned for almost 23 years must be completed. And we were told all sorts of things. We needed so billion to do that and all that, but I was convinced that we could do it. And we came to the House, and luckily my relationship with you was, I was one of those commissioners who would just be asked to take a bow and leave. And I never abused it. And with the support of everybody, we got it done. I came back under another governor to the Ministry of Information, and everybody thought National Assembly, the National Archives Records Bureau will only happen at the national level. But I believe that Lagos could take the lead. And Lagos State Records and Archives Bureau, they gave us land, and I was convinced we could do it. And we were told it would cost $500 billion, government did not have it. I came to the House. We got away with it, by God's grace, it's there as an evidence. People are coming from all the other 35 states of the Federation to Lagos State Records and Archives Bureau. So for me, anything that will boil down to legacy, and for which you know tomorrow is your encouraged. Again, I thank you, and it's been a pleasure spending the last 3 days with you. God bless you.
Mr. Speaker, he has said it all. By design, we were just to take it simultaneously. You want to make a comment or should I just? Okay. First is to say, if you remember on Monday we said it is very, very important to build the institution. Because once the institution is capacitated, the work becomes easy. And the institution is not just about the budget office, it's also about the committees. How functional are your committees? Are they well staffed? Are they adequately empowered? All these are issues that we'll discuss subsequently. So that whether you are sleeping or somebody calls you at any point in time, you have access to the relevant information. And I say this without reservation.
Their own bill, they will pass it themselves. A bill creating NABRO. Why are you doing that? Without a law creating that office, you are not going to be able to access funds, either locally or internationally. And one thing that I will appeal for, sir, is that you remove that power of investigation. I mean, NABRO has nothing to do with investigation all over the world. When you have time, please Google and see budget and research office in Canada, in the US, everywhere, and see. Uganda, that you mentioned, sir, has one of the best budget and research offices all over the world. Uganda, to our surprise. It has nothing to do with investigation. I mean, you have your PAC, you have other relevant committees. Budget and research is to build and strengthen the capacity of members, and you need a law creating that. Once that bill is passed into law, it now becomes easy to raise. So part of what the bill would have addressed is how to even access funds, and we also make a copy of the NABRO bill available. Mr. Otoye is here. You know, while I chaired NABRO, he was actually the acting DG, because he was the clerk of appropriation committee for 17 years. And I felt, you know, something had to be done. And I spoke with Speaker Tambo to at least release this man to come ahead, unless there was something he was looking for in that appropriation committee. And with FPA in finance and PSC economics, I thought he could add value, and we brought him. And sir, that bill was passed by both houses, and eventually President Jonathan, because just lost election, he was mad at everybody, refused to sign it into law. But we took up anyway, and today is one of the bills that President Buhari is about to sign. But we will try and send a copy of that so that the people that will work on it will know that, and let all the members append their signature so that you are sure that it's their own bill. And Mr. Speaker, I assure you this will work. Many of those people, your friends that you are speaking with, those embassies, will support. Some, it's not even their money that you need, it's the expertise. They will. And if you want to bring your own expertise, your own experts to work, they will fund, you know, the salary of such people. And also decide among the career civil servants there, those who want to transfer, once there is a law creating it, you see some of your career officers willing to transfer, you know, their service to, I mean, that committee. And House, you have your commission, House of Assembly Commission, you know, will be responsible for hiring, I mean, people who would work there. So I really believe that it will work, and all of us will be happy to work with the House in this regard. Thank you.